Shots fired, shots fired, shots fired.
A night of terror and violence ends in gunfire. Action Air 1 over the scene as the bullets fly.
Would have killed somebody before the day was over.
An armed and dangerous man, now off the streets.
This wasn't going to end well.
Police say Chris Bates left a trail of blood and victims. A hostage telling us how she prayed with the gunman.
He said he was going to die before the night was over.
That prediction coming true early this afternoon in a dramatic shootout. Good evening, everyone. I'm Linda Hurtado.
And I'm Jamison Euler. We have crews spread out covering every angle of this story. Our Carson Chambers is live at the scene of the dramatic shootout that we brought you live at noon. Ashley Glass is talking with some of the victims of Bates's overnight crime spree. And Alex Hobson is at the apartment complex where deputies say Bates held up a woman and took her car.
As we come on the air, this investigation is ongoing, and there are still a lot of unanswered questions. We begin our live team coverage with Carson Chambers, and Carson 301 is still shut down, and the scenes, it looks still active tonight.
Right, this crime scene is still pulsing with activity. In fact, we are standing right by dozens of investigators, some of them crime scene techs who appear to be still picking up evidence, possibly bullets just behind us. Now, in the middle of 301, they had to shut it down. You can see for about an eighth of a mile all the way down to I-4 here, north and southbound lanes at this hour. Now, just over my shoulder here, this is the suspect's wrecked vehicle. You can see it right there, sort of a brownish reddish color. A man that detectives say terrorized Tampa for nearly 12 hours.
He's driving somewhere between 80 and 100 miles an hour, shooting out of the car.
It took more than 100 rounds.
He wanted very badly to hurt someone, and so he wasn't going to go any further than this.
Hundreds of law enforcement officers bent on catching him.
And they understood that they had to end that right there, and that's exactly what they did.
And an intense high-stakes police chase to bring 24-year-old armed home invasion and serial rapist suspect Chris Bates down.
A guy who would have, no doubt in my mind, would have killed somebody.
Bates came close on this stretch of US 301 Blacktop near Interstate 4, where Action Air 1 caught the brazen chase on camera, where Bates unloaded his weapon at two Tampa police officers who tailed him, and another sheriff's deputy just seconds behind.
They had very smartly put up a ballistic shield in the windshield, which was deflecting some of the rounds that were going into the car.
TPD officers pulled off a daring move, foiling his only shot to get away after a violent crime spree near the USF campus.
And the indication today was that this wasn't going to end well.
Bates was wanted for a home invasion at a North Tampa apartment where detectives say he interrupted a football game party, bound 4 men, and raped 4 women. They also say he held 25 people at gunpoint at a nearby birthday party, then bolted after nearly sexually assaulting another woman when she prayed for him not to hurt her.
We received information that the suspect in this case was at another apartment, possibly holding another female hostage.
That's where deputies say Bates shaved his head, stole this car, a car tattooed with bullet holes. Officers risked it all to stop his rampage.
Basically said end this, and that's what happened.
I'm back here live on scene. This will be a painstaking process for CSI techs. They are collecting every bit of evidence. The sheriff says that hundreds of rounds were fired. At least 7 law enforcement officers fired those shots, as well as the suspect. We know that he died an hour after he was transported here to get medical care. Live in Hillsborough County, I'm Carson Chambers. Back to you.
Carson, thank you. This 12-hour manhunt came to a dramatic end, and it all played out live right here on ABC Action News at noon. Let's look at that video again. 2 Tampa police officers chased Bates down US 301, trying to stop him from getting onto the interstate. Then they try to perform a pit maneuver, hitting the back of Bates's car, trying to get him to crash. The first time doesn't work, so officers make another attempt. This time, it's successful, causing Bates to lose control and crash into a ditch in front of a Waffle House. And from there, a shootout begins. The gunfire erupted right in front of several people who happened to be in the area at the time of the shootout. Authorities forced Bates off of the road along US 301, and there are several restaurants about a mile north of I-4. One witness was in the parking lot of a truck stop and watched the suspect's car spin out just before the shootout erupted. Nabil Naborian says that if one of the officers hadn't ducked down just before the suspect started shooting, the outcome might have been very different.
If he stand up, he got killed. But what he did, he threw himself in the ground and he jumped in the back and he started shooting from the back of the car.
Abaran says he saw the suspect get pulled from the vehicle after the gunfire and says it appeared he was hit several times. Fortunately, the bullets did not stray from their target and hit any innocent bystanders.
Now we have an ABC Action News exclusive. One of Chris Bates' victims tells our Ashley Glass that Bates held her entire house full of party guests hostage, at one point even pointing a gun right at her fiance's head. Ashley picks up our live team coverage outside the Oaks Apartments on North 42nd Street. Ashley, how terrifying.
Claudia Sajo was celebrating her birthday, she tells me, in these apartments just behind me. In this exclusive interview, Claudia tells me about the minutes where she feared for her life and that she will never forget the look on that man's face as he walked through her front door.
He just had a crazy look on his face, like he was out for blood more than anything.
An uninvited guest to Claudia Sajo's 20th birthday party.
And he just took out a gun and we still thought like, okay, this is a joke.
But Claudia soon realizing the man busting into her birthday was serious and dangerous.
We were all shoved against this wall over here.
Chris Bates ordering all 25 guests into a back bedroom at gunpoint, she says.
One of my friends tried to call 911 and he told us to all throw our phones in front, and then after that he started pointing guns asking who was the one who called 911, and then he shot towards the ground. And he said, you see, I was not joking. You guys better tell me who it is or I'll kill every single one of you in this room.
Claudia huddled in the closet, kneeling, shielded by her fiancé.
I was sitting like this, I was sitting like this and she was shoved in inside over there. And like,
he was just like putting the gun right here, like that close to his head.
Bates growing more agitated by the minute, Claudia says, then demanding money. She says he gathered up $80, but suspects it wasn't really the money he was after.
He was more like power hungry, or I don't know what it was. He got to thrive out of scaring the life out of everybody else. By the look on his face, like he was serious. He was not going to care if he killed every single person in this room.
Bates wanted more, she says, grabbing at one of the female guests and then looking around for more stuff to steal.
He noticed that like we have nothing else to give and we were being all cooperative. That's when he left. No, nobody was hurt, thank God.
The whole ordeal in Claudia's apartment lasting 30 minutes, though she tells me it felt like forever. She didn't know Chris Bates had been captured, shot, and ultimately killed until we knocked on her door this afternoon. The only word she could use in describing what she felt in knowing he'd been captured was relief. Live in Tampa, Ashley Glass, ABC Action News.
Ashley, thank you. Our live team coverage continues now at the scene of another of Bates' alleged crimes. Our Alex Hobson is outside of the apartment complex where the sheriff says Bates held up a woman at gunpoint and stole her car.
This was the last known stop Bates made before that big shootout with police. We're here outside of the Point apartment complex, but we did get a chance to go inside earlier and speak with neighbors. As you could see in the video, crime scene tape is up and detectives have blocked off the building where the sheriff's office says Bates came to a female's apartment, reportedly held a gun to her head and attempted to change his appearance by cutting off his dreadlocks. Right now, the sheriff does not know the relationship of the woman with Bates, but they say he stole her car, and that was the car you could see in this aerial footage getting chased down by police. Today we spoke with neighbors who still can't believe the man everyone had been looking for hours was so close.
That's crazy. I mean, that's just something I wouldn't think it would happen here.
Very, very spooked, and I guess I'm a little bit more aware of my surroundings now.
We do know when Bates left here, he went down this road and behind the Florida hospital, which is very close to where we're standing. We're still working to find out, though, who the woman is whose apartment he went to here inside this complex. The sheriff said Bates may have known her before, but at this time, their relationship is still unclear. Reporting in Tampa, Alex Hobson, ABC Action News.
Has been connected to 3 other crimes in the last month. On August 9th, he allegedly broke into a woman's home near Bush Boulevard and Rome Avenue in Tampa and threatened to rape and kill her. But the victim started praying and Bates ran off. Then on September 3rd, police say Bates broke into a home near 15th Street and Comanche Avenue where he pistol whipped a man and committed a sex act on a woman. And just last night, police say Bates forced his way into a woman's apartment and made her take her clothes off. But she started reciting Bible verses and Bates left. Deputies tell us suspect Chris Bates lived in the Lakeland area, and investigator Michael George went there looking for relatives and for answers about what might have set him off. Here's Mike George.
I just spoke with Chris Bates' family, and they say he was suicidal, and they believe he was trying to commit suicide by cop. And in a house just down the street, the family was watching on live television as he led police on a chase and into a fatal gunfight. Did you see it on TV?
Yes, I saw the whole thing on TV.
What's that like for
you? It's devastating. It's totally devastating to watch your child die.
Garfield Williams is the stepfather of Chris Bates, accused of a string of violent sexual assaults. His family says Bates ran from police because he wanted to die.
He decided that he was going to go out like that. I guess suicide by cop.
Was he depressed?
He's been suicidal for the last 4 or 5 years. He's tried it twice.
Bates was 24 years old, and the I-Team has learned he just finished a drug treatment program last week. His family says he was also recently fired from a job at Publix. They believe police could have taken Bates alive.
I don't think they had to shoot as many times as they did on the real cause. I had just talked to the same officer in that gray vehicle and told him he was suicidal.
4 years ago, Bates was arrested for domestic violence, but the charges were dropped. And 6 months ago, he was arrested again for carrying a concealed weapon and marijuana possession. The gun charge was later dropped. But as to the horrific crimes Bates is accused of over the last 24 hours, Garfield tells me he doesn't know what to think.
If he did it, he did that to lead up to what happened.
Because he was trying to commit suicide?
Basically.
And again, Bates' family is telling me they believe he was very troubled, but a good person. Coming up at 6, you're going to hear much more from them on what they believe the motive was for the events that took place today. Reporting in Lakeland, I'm I-Team investigator Michael George, ABC Action News.
Our complete coverage continues right now on abcactionnews.com. It's there that we've posted today's news conferences, the raw video from the dramatic chase, and the shootout, and photos from the search. It's all online again at abcactionnews.com.
Good afternoon, everyone. We've already had severe thunderstorm warnings, Hillsborough and Pasco County. They have expired. I would suspect more will be issued, though, over the next few hours. As you look at Titan Doppler radar, still very, very heavy thunderstorms across northern Hillsborough, Pasco, northeastern Pinellas, right on through Lakeland. Now, there's a craziness in terms of the steering currents here. They're kind of going almost in any different direction. You have the one cells going to the south, other cells going to the west, and our lightning detection network shows over 9,000 lightning strikes in just the last hour, and that number is climbing. In terms of where we believe the heaviest weather will be over the next few hours, it will likely be right across the metro. A lot of high school football games going on tonight. We'll take a closer look at where the dangers will be highest, and the weekend forecast coming up in a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Dennis. Skeptical about military action in Syria. President Obama is trying to change minds on the final day of the G20 summit. Hear how he is pressuring fellow world leaders for their support. And we're asking a local rep how she plans to vote on the president's plan.
And a shocking online confession. See what this man is admitting to before even being charged and why he says he didn't.
I'm Ryan Raish in Winter Haven, where the coach accused of fondling a girl is now in jail, but it's not his first time. So how did he get a job at this school? The story's coming up all new at 5:30.
New details in a domestic double murder-suicide in a Brooksville golf community with 3 people dead, including a 9-month-old baby. The Hernando County Sheriff describes this incident as simply heartbreaking. Our Fallon Silcox joins us live from the scene with the latest on this. Good evening, Fallon.
Deputies just pulled away just a few minutes ago after having been here since 10:30 last night. If you take a look behind me here, this is the house where it all went down. Law enforcement describing the scene inside as horrific.
Guilty as hell.
John Burmeister says he didn't know Rosanna Sanson well. She'd only moved into this home at the end of July. But when he heard the arguing last night,
She moved right, he would go there and try to cover it. She tried to go towards the house, he covered it. Basically what he did is he boxed her in and forbid her to move.
he knew he had to do something. So he walked over, made small talk, offering help with anything, anytime. but that call for help never came.
When we got here, we found all three of the individuals, including the 9-month-old little boy, all deceased.
Hernando County Sheriff Niehaus says a neighbor called 911 around 10 o'clock last night, saying they'd heard this man, Jamel, Etiam, and Sanson fighting earlier. They saw Rosanna packing the SUV, then hours went by, it got dark, and the back of the truck still open. The house dead silent.
The weapon was a bladed instrument, a knife, and so that obviously makes a scene that is pretty horrific when you have three deceased individuals who die in such a violent manner.
Investigators say Etiam killed Rosanna, her baby, and himself. Neighbors say they're sickened.
I just keep thinking about that 9-month-old baby and the mother.
Rosanna called deputies to the house 2 times before, saying Etiam threatened to kill himself. The first time on August 20th, then 4 days later. That time, deputies arrested him for domestic battery against Rosanna. But he bonded out of jail, and deputies, doing everything the law allows, say Rosanna couldn't be saved.
We strongly encourage victims, if there's domestic violence in the house, to get out and get some help.
Deputies say every victim of domestic violence receives information on resources available, as well as a victim's advocate, but they say they don't know whether Sanson took advantage of those services. Live in Brooksville, I'm Fallon Silcox, ABC Action News.
Fallon, thank you. Well, ABC Action News is committed to taking action against domestic violence. There's a statewide domestic violence hotline. We also have links to help you or someone you know. Just go to abcactionnews.com/DV or check out our Facebook page as well.
We've learned that President Obama will address the nation on possible action in Syria. He's set to do that next Tuesday night. His goal is to convince war-weary Americans and lawmakers that the U.S. cannot stand by and do nothing after the alleged use of chemical weapons by the Assad regime. One of those lawmakers who needs convincing is Representative Kathy Castor of Tampa, who we caught up with today.
But I still believe that an overt military strike by the United States at this time is not in America's best interest. It's very easy to enter into war. It's very difficult to get out.
A strike on Syria was introduced in the Senate this afternoon. Votes won't happen, though, until next week. But most people believe if it came up for a vote right now, the resolution would probably fail. Russian President Vladimir Putin said if Syria is attacked, his country will help its ally.
Now, certified the most accurate weather team in Florida, ABC Action Weather.
Well, just before we came on the air, my Storm Shield app went off, telling me, alerting me there were thunderstorms over Lutz, and now there's thunderstorms over a lot of the viewing area.
Exactly. You know, it made me, I was laughing last night because the NFL game got delayed because of 3 lightning strikes 20 miles north of Denver. We've got about 10,000 locally in the last hour. You wonder how the Bucs will ever get a game in if that's the way things are going to be playing out in terms of delaying. And of course, there are high school football games tonight, and that concerns us as well, because over the next 2 hours, 3 hours, we're going to be seeing a lot of lightning. Expect delays at local games for the rain, as you see here over at 275 and Bruce B. Downs, but more so because of the lightning. That is obviously our biggest concern here, the lightning capital of North America, and off of State Road 60. An ominous look out in the distance. At least for the time being, the warnings have expired, but it's something I don't like to get hung up on anyway, just because the warnings mean gusty winds and hail. Any of these storms from Lakeland through Hillsborough County, back toward Pasco, Pinellas, Hernando, Citrus County, getting very, very heavy rains right now. And I mean, there are boundaries everywhere. There's another one. So it's like a wishbone. That's wind right there. That's air. More storms will develop along that. So folks, looking at our lightning detection network over the next few hours, I fully anticipate more warnings. And if you have any plans on going out this evening, it's a good idea to download your Storm Shield app, or at the very least, keep an eye to our Facebook page or abcactionnews.com, because this is a very nasty situation here, especially with all the high school games going on. That's my biggest concern, because, I mean, there's going to be folks out there. You know there will be. Over 9,000 strikes. I wouldn't be surprised if this number gets closer to 10,000 the next time we check it, and with good reason. Here's our strike zone technology, northern Pinellas, northeastern Hillsborough, from Plant City over toward Lakeland. The darker the color, the more volatile and the more likely over the next half hour severe lightning will occur. So let's take a closer look here from west to east, right along the Vets and east right on through I-4. And look at all of this is moving in many different directions. I was talking about this earlier. You've got primarily a northeast to southwest flow here, and yet on the other side, you've got your sea breeze boundary setting up. So that goes in this direction. Those will combine and then move back to the southwest at about 7:30, 8 o'clock tonight. So we're really going to be looking at this for several hours. In terms of coverage, you can pretty much, as Linda say, almost anywhere. I mean, that's State Road 54 near Odessa, over toward Lutz, for that matter, right on down toward Plant City, Zephyr Hills. The rains in Wesley Chapel are beginning to wind down for the time being. Expect more later on from Providence, Socrum, right on over to Lakeland, Bartow. I mean, there, I superimposed the lightning on top here, slow motion, just to show you how insane this cluster is over the last half hour or so. And you see the wind. Look at the wind right there. That's the outflow boundary. When you're standing outside and you feel that gust of wind before a storm comes, well, that's showing up on radar. And you can already see more rains developing along that boundary. That's what we call an outflow boundary, and it can get extremely nasty along that boundary, and it likely will over the next hour or two. Temperatures in the 70s, back behind where the rains have fallen, still in the upper 80s to low 90s where it hasn't. We still have a very tropical air mass right on top of us, and as I mentioned, that rapid refresh model, I've been posting that on Facebook today, all over this forecast, bringing everything from the northeast to the southwest, and that's a little rare for us. Usually it comes in out of a southeasterly direction, but the winds have been coming generally back toward the beach out of the northeast, which is why more rain, more storms will continue until about 9 or 10 o'clock, and then everything winds down. Same thing tomorrow in terms of timing, but first thing in the morning, beautiful. Lunchtime, good too. So any plans before 2 o'clock, you're good to go. I think some drier air tries to come in by Sunday into Monday. Now, there will still be storms out there, but just not as widespread as we had today, yesterday, and still see tomorrow. Rain chances down to 40% on Sunday, and then next week, at least for a period of time, back down to 30%. Still summer-like temps, highs in the low 90s.
We don't want to throw a lot of excessive government regulations on the apartments, but we do want them to be good neighbors.
I'm Taylor Vincent in St. Pete. The program city officials want many more apartment complexes to complete. All new at 5:30.
A new legal battle brewing for George Zimmerman as his wife announces their divorce. Ahead, what happened after his trial, leading to their split. Now for a developing story about a controversial clothing line. Florida's Attorney General is going after another company that sells products with a drug theme. Pam Bondi wants the Kitson Company to dump its line of jerseys that have names on the back like Xanax and Vicodin. Bondi's spokeswoman says the jerseys glamorize some of our country's most abused prescription drugs.
Attorney General Bondi has previously asked Urban Outfitters to end one of their prescription drug product lines, and they did. And she's very grateful that Urban Outfitters saw this need to work with us in stopping prescription drug abuse, and she hopes that Kitson will do the same.
Bondi wrote a letter to the company saying her effort to stop prescription drug abuse is one of her top priorities.
George Zimmerman's wife, Shelley, just sat down exclusively with ABC News to talk about her recent decision to file for divorce after standing by her husband during his trial for the shooting death of Trayvon Martin. Shelley Zimmerman says she's filing for divorce because their marriage is irretrievably broken. Since George Zimmerman's acquittal in July, Shelley says he's maybe spent 3 or 4 nights at the home that they quietly shared. She moved out on August 13th and claims George has a temper and was verbally abusive.
I have been married to a person for almost 7 years, and I don't think I ever really knew him at all.
Shelley says she and George went to counseling, but it was not working. She's asking for their 2 dogs and a share of whatever her husband might win in a defamation lawsuit that he has filed against NBC.
I'm Ryan Raish in Winter Haven with new questions about how a coach accused of fondling a student got a job with the school in the first place, even with a criminal history. The surprising answer coming up all new at 5:30.
Also new in our next half hour, we're hearing from former Florida Gator Aaron Hernandez. Hear how he is answering to the charge of first-degree murder.
20 minutes, twice a week, for about 5 weeks. That's all it took for this woman to lose 8 pounds and 6% of her body fat. How she did it and why this workout facility may be the first of its kind in the Tampa Bay area. That's coming up.
Live from the station taking action for you, this is ABC Action News.
Good evening. I'm Jamison Euler. Brendan is off.
And I'm Linda Hurtado, and we're still following that dramatic shooting that ended with the death of a suspect wanted for a night of terror and rape near USF. Our Carson Chambers is live on US 301, where that chase ended in a hail of gunfire. Carson?
Well, Linda, US 301 is still shut down tonight, hours after this crash happened. In fact, it shut down north and southbound about a eighth of a mile all the way down to I-4, and you can see why. Dozens of investigators are here collecting evidence, hundreds of rounds fired by at least 7 law enforcement officers. And then just over here, Eric can show you, this is Christopher Bates' wrecked car. It is tattooed with bullet holes underneath that plastic sheeting you see there. Now, Tampa police and sheriff's deputies chased him here from an apartment complex around Florida Hospital. They forced him to wreck, but it was a firefight before they took him down. He was wanted for a home invasion at a North Tampa apartment complex where he allegedly bound 4 men and raped 4 women. And then detectives say he held 25 people at gunpoint against their will at a birthday party and also attacked a 3rd woman. We do know that Bates was shot during that chase and he died about an hour after it ended. Back to you guys.
All right, Carson, thank you. We're going to have more on that story at the top of the hour. New at 5:30, parents want to know why the Winter Haven coach accused of fondling a student was allowed to work at the school, even with a criminal history. Deputies arrested Michael Cope yesterday after he admitted the inappropriate touching of a 15-year-old. And we found out today it's not his first time in jail. Our Ryan Raish has that story tonight.
Appearing in court today for the first time, Michael Cope faced a judge and reality. The court ordered him held on $10,000 bond for charges that he fondled a student during detention at Lake Region High School. But now we're learning this is not his first time in jail.
If you have a record, I mean, why are you here with kids?
Vera Mathis was appalled to hear that Cope, who was also the girls' varsity basketball coach at Lake Region, has 4 prior arrests. Charges range from writing bad checks to driving under the influence and domestic violence.
The school district attorney would not go on camera, but told me there was nothing on Cope's record that would have prevented him from getting a job with the school. That's because he had no felonies and no charges involving kids.
A record is a record. And he should not be around kids, and he should not be working at the school.
His latest arrest on Thursday is by far the most serious. Investigators say Cope eventually admitted to touching a 15-year-old girl's backside and breasts at school, even though at first he called it an accident.
Things don't accidentally happen like this with both hands.
Today, some parents are defending the coach. Katrina Maltby's daughter played on the basketball team for 3 years and never once felt uncomfortable.
Never any concerns. He was a wonderful person. He was a great supporter of her playing basketball.
While his prior arrests may have been okay in the school board's eyes, this one will set his employment over the edge. The board is expected to officially fire the coach later this month. In Winter Haven, Ryan Raish, ABC Action News.
A St. Pete City Councilman says just 2 doesn't cut it. Our Taylor Vincent tells us about a crime prevention program that only a couple apartment complexes in the city have used, and how city officials believe it can bolster their community.
We don't want to throw a lot of excessive government regulations on the apartments, but we do want them to be good neighbors.
And it's that desire for cooperation, St. Pete City Councilman Steve Cornell says, that helped create the Apartment Community Crime Reduction Program 2 years ago, a program run by St. Pete Police.
We're not certifying that they're crime-free. What we're certifying is that they've taken steps to reduce the risk of crime.
The program itself is free, but in order to receive certification, apartment complexes have to implement safety changes which police recommend. Cornell says he's disappointed with the low number of participating complexes.
So far, only 2 apartment communities out of the whole city have taken advantage of the certification.
Those 2 are the Carlton Arms of St. Petersburg Complex and Camden Lakes Apartments. Police say while the recommended changes can cost the apartment complexes, it's well worth it.
Some situations involve additional lighting, possibly cameras, and there's a price tag involved with some of those things. But that's an investment that you make with the hopes of driving benefits down the pike.
A lot of them are very low cost or no cost. So why any apartment community would not embrace this and want to move forward with this, I'm a little baffled.
In St. Petersburg, Taylor Vincent, ABC Action News.
New developments now in the Aaron Hernandez murder case. Today, the former Florida Gator and New England Patriots star entered not guilty pleas on 6 charges, including first-degree murder. Prosecutors allege Hernandez orchestrated the murder of Odin Lloyd in June, and court records show an accomplice claims it was Hernandez that actually shot Lloyd. For now, Hernandez is in prison, held without bail. His next hearing is scheduled for October 9th.